Secure Act 2.0 was signed into law at the end of 2022. In it are some major changes to the way you can plan for your retirement. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through 7 major changes you need to be aware of so you can most effectively implement those in your plan. Hey everybody, I'm James Knoll, founder of Roth Financial, and I'm here to teach you how to get the most out of life with your money. Now, 3 years ago, Secure Act 1 was initially passed. It wasn't called Secure Act 1, it was just called Secure Act, and it made some changes to your retirement. Now, Secure Act 2.0 was recently signed into law, and it makes even more changes to the way you need to plan for your retirement. Now, the first way to get ahead when it comes to your retirement planning is understanding the landscape in which you're operating. So today I want to walk you through 7 of the most important changes, at least as I see it, that Secure Act 2.0 put into existence. The first of these changes has to do with required minimum distributions, or RMDs. The original Secure Act pushed RMDs from age 70.5 to age 72. Now, Secure Act 2.0, it's pushing them out even further. It's immediately making the RMD age 73, and if you were born in 1960 or later, it's pushing your RMD age to age 75. So depending on when you were born, you're gonna have a different age at which you must start taking your RMDs. If you're born 1950 or before, the effective rule is your RMDs are age 72, maybe even potentially 70.5 if you were already collecting before the initial Secure Act was passed. If you were born 1960 or later, your RMD age is age 75, and if you're born any time between then, so 1951 to 1959, your RMD age is now age 73. So what are the implications of this? Is it just you have longer until you need to start taking distributions from your IRA? Well, yes, but there's also some serious tax planning implications. When you retire, you have what's called a tax planning window. And that tax planning window is the years between the time that you retire and the times that your required minimum distributions kick in. Why does that time frame matter? Well, if you think about it, when you're working, your income is high. Then when your RMDs kick in, depending on the size of your IRA balance, your income might be high again. But between those years, if you're living on cash or brokerage accounts or Social Security or income that's not as taxable, your income tax bracket will probably be much lower. So what this does is it extends your tax planning window. The implications for you are that gives you more years that you could implement things like Roth conversions or implement things like good effective tax strategy to make sure you're minimizing your lifetime tax liability. The second change that Secure Act 2.0 brought around is it made it a lot more accessible to have access to Roth accounts. There's many changes with this. Now let's start though by explaining what it didn't do. What it didn't do was it did not eliminate the ability to make a backdoor Roth IRA or a mega backdoor Roth 401k conversion. This is important. Original aspects of this bill would have done away with the ability to do a backdoor Roth conversion. That original piece of the legislation was not in the final legislation. So if you're making too much money to do a Roth IRA directly, or if you're implementing a mega backdoor Roth conversion through your 401k at work, the good news is those are still accessible. You won't have to limit that because of what we initially thought when this bill was initially released. It also made more Roth account types available. So previously, the only way you could get money into Roth accounts was through contributing to a Roth IRA, either directly or through a backdoor Roth, or through a Roth 401k, if your employer allowed it. Well, if you're self-employed, now you also have the ability to set up a Roth Simple IRA and a Roth SEP IRA. So what it's doing is it's just expanding the number of options available to you to get money into a Roth account. So this is gonna make it a lot easier for smaller employers and self-employed individuals to get more into Roth accounts without actually having to have the Roth 401k structure. Now on top of this, there's other details that make Roth options more available I'm gonna touch upon later, but the big takeaways at first is you can still do backdoor Roth conversions, and we'll now have the introduction of Roth Simple IRAs and Roth SEP IRAs. The third major change, or most important change about Secure Act 2.0 is the ability to move college savings plans into Roth IRAs. One big hangup most parents or grandparents had in the past about setting up college savings plans is, what if my kid doesn't use it? What if my grandchild doesn't use it? Either because they don't go to college or they get a scholarship or the account's overfunded, people had hesitancy towards putting too much money into these college savings plans. One of the beautiful things now is this bill will allow you to move that 529 plan, that balance, into a Roth IRA for that same beneficiary. So if you have too much in a 529 plan, or if your child doesn't end up going to college, what the provision allows for is you can shift those funds from the 529 plan into a Roth IRA for that designated beneficiary. Now there are some rules. Here's the rules of that. Number one, you still can't contribute more than the annual contribution limit. So for 2023, for example, if you're under 50, you can't put more than $6,500 into a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. That limit will still apply. So let's say you have $50,000 in a 529 plan, you can't just shift the entire amount into the Roth. You can only do the annual contribution limit per year. On top of that, there's a lifetime transfer limit of $35,000. Meaning, if I go back to my $50,000 example, even though you can't do the whole amount in any one year, not only that, but you also can't contribute the entire amount over the course of several years. Once you've transferred a cumulative $35,000 from that 529 plan to the Roth IRA, you're capped. That's a lifetime limit, but what it does allow for is allows those funds to continue growing tax-free. Instead of being used for college, it's giving children or grandchildren or whoever the beneficiary is of that 529 plan a great leg up when it comes to their own retirement planning. A couple more rules with that. In the same way that if you want to make a Roth IRA contribution, you have to have earned income, the same rules will apply to this. So let's assume, for example, you have a 529 plan and your child is still in college and you're aware of this new rule. You say, this is wonderful. I'm going to start funding the Roth IRA now. Well, unless they have earned income, you can't actually make that transfer. Now, if they have a summer job or they work on campus doing something, that's income, that's eligible. But if they have zero income, they're not actually eligible for that transfer. They have to be showing income for you to make that work. The other rule around this is actually a big benefit is if I'm going to contribute to my own Roth IRA, there's income limits. If I make over a certain limit, I can't make that Roth IRA contribution because my income would be too high. Now with these 529 plan to Roth IRA transfers, that same income limit does not apply. So if I have, for example, a 529 plan for my daughter and she doesn't end up using it and she has a great high paying job, she couldn't contribute to a Roth IRA directly, but I could still move money from her 529 plan into her Roth IRA, subject of course to the annual limits. So that is a great benefit of this is the normal income limit rules, those don't apply here. Another important change that Secure Act 2.0 brought around is it allowed for different beneficiary options when you inherit a retirement account. Now this specific provision doesn't actually go into effect until 2024, and the way it works sounds a little confusing, so I'm going to give you an example, but this is effectively what it does. In the past, if you are married and your spouse passes away, you have the option of simply taking that IRA and making it your own, or making that an inherited IRA where you then take RMDs over the course of your expected lifetime. The new rules change that, and the new rules will apply if there's an age gap between spouses. Under the new rules, you can now elect, if a spouse passes away, to essentially become the spouse in a way. Sounds confusing, but here's how it works. Let's assume you're 65 and your spouse is 60. Let's then assume your spouse tragically passes away. Well, under the old rules, you would have taken their IRA and made it your own. Now, because it's your own, you would now be subject to RMDs when you turn 73. It's the new age of the new Secure Act 2.0 rules. Well, under the new rules, instead of making that IRA your own, you could elect to be treated as your spouse. So it stays a separate IRA that you still own, but the RMD rules are still applicable as if your spouse was still here, still living. So what that means for you is that once you turn 73, your spouse would still have been 68. So with that account, it's not subject to the same RMDs like your IRA is. What that's doing is it's pushing back, or it's giving you more time until all these RMDs have to be taken. So in this specific example, you would turn 73 and be subject to RMDs, but the inherited IRA, or the IRA that you inherited from a spouse, if you elect this new option, you would not have to take RMDs from that for another 5 years, and really another 7 years, because your spouse, if they're 60 today, their RMD age would be age 75, not 73. So where does this apply? This applies if one spouse predeceases the other and the deceased spouse is younger than the surviving spouse. In those situations, this will be an election a beneficiary election that you'd want to really consider. Another change with Secure Act 2.0 is IRA contribution amounts are now indexed for inflation. So in the past, it was just a flat $1,000. If the IRA limit was $6,000 if you were under 50, well, it was $6,000 plus $1,000, so $7,000 if you're 50 or above. With the new rules, it's not just a fixed $1,000 catch-up, it's now indexed for inflation. What are the implications of this? Well, if you're 50 or older, it's going to allow you to put more into a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. The other kind of confusing implications of this is that it's going to be indexed to inflation in increments of 100. So the nice thing about it just being a fixed $1,000, that's a pretty easy number to track. Well, now the catch-up contribution in future years might be $1,200 or $1,400 or $1,700. So kind of just an odd number, but it's allowing you to put more away. You're just gonna have kind of funky contribution limits when it comes to IRAs and Roth IRAs. The sixth change has to do with contribution limits as it pertains to retirement plans through work. I mentioned earlier, there was more details about Roth contributions and more expansion of Roth options available to you. Well, this is how that works. Number one, under the new law, if you are an employee and you're in your employer's 401k plan or 403b or 457, so really any retirement plan, as you are doing that, let's assume you're making Roth 401k contributions. Well, even if you're doing Roth 401k, the employer match is always going to the pre-tax account. So you're getting your money in after tax, but the matching contributions are before tax. The changes are you can now elect for the employer matching contributions to be Roth as well. Now the implications for you is any matching contributions would now be included as earned income. So you'd have to pay taxes on them, whereas before there was no tax implication to you. But if you wanted to, if your employer is making matching contributions, you could now elect for that to be going into your Roth account. Now I say now because technically this is available, but these things have to be changed with plan administrators, 401k plan administrators. So it's actually going to be a little bit of time until this is truly an option, but the new law allows for this to be the case. Another new change is starting in 2024, if your income is more than $145,000, and that number will be indexed for inflation, but if your income exceeds that, any catch-up contributions you make to your 401k have to go to the Roth portion. So for 2023, for example, $7,500 is the limit for catch-up contributions to a 401k. In 2024, when the new law goes into effect, if you're currently making those catch-up contributions and you're choosing pre-tax and your income is above $145,000, you won't be able to do that anymore. You will have to put your catch-up contribution into the Roth account, pay taxes on it, assuming your income is above these thresholds. So that's a change that goes into effect in 2024. Then in 2025, the catch-up contribution limits, those will actually increase if you're 60 or older. Now it's if you're 60, 61, 62. The way I'm reading it's not clear what if you're 64, 65 or above, but starting at 60, your catch-up contribution would go up to either the higher of $10,000 or 150% of the current catch-up contribution limit. So what does that mean? If the current catch-up contribution is $7,500, well, 150% of that is $11,250. So $11,250, that would actually be the contribution limit that you would have available to you starting at age 60. Going back to my previous point, if your income is below $145,000, you could elect to make that catch-up contribution either pre-tax or Roth. But if your income is higher than $145,000, you will be forced to put whatever you elect to do with the catch-up contribution amount, you'll be forced to put that into a Roth account. Final planning point that's important to note with the new Secure Act 2.0 is it really drastically changes the penalty for a missed RMD. So required minimum distributions, we talked about the ages being pushed back. What most people don't know is if you don't take your RMD on time, it's subject to one of the most severe penalties you can face. You are subject to 50% penalty on whatever amount of your RMD you did not take. So if you had an RMD of $40,000 and you spaced or you forgot or you just didn't know you were supposed to take it, well, you're going to be forced to take it when you find that out, and you're going to have to pay a 50% penalty, so $20,000 in this example, to the IRS. It's a very strict penalty. What the new Secure Act legislation does is it reduces that penalty to 25%, and reduces it even further to 10% if you correct it in a timely manner, and they give a few parameters of what does a timely manner mean. Now, this is somewhat a planning point. Obviously, you want to plan to not miss RMDs and take those so you don't have to worry about any penalty. But so often I see people who not only have missed an RMD, but have missed a series of RMDs because they didn't know they were supposed to take it. They thought their advisor was maybe taking it for them or the custodian was taking it for them. And what it does is it leads to a lot of penalties. So it's good to see that that's being reduced, but the key planning point, of course, is don't miss an RMD. Just know that if you do, the penalty is a little less severe going forward. So those are some important changes to Secure Act 2.0. Now, if you're watching and haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do so you get more great videos just like this. And if you're looking for more great ideas or more great videos on how can you plan the most secure retirement possible, be sure to check out this playlist here. Once again, I'm James Knoll, founder of Root Financial. And if you're interested in seeing how we help our clients at Root Financial get the most out of life with their money, be sure to visit us at www.rootfinancialpartners.com.